Hi everybody, and welcome to Google SAS Office Hours. My name is Ethan Gracer. I'm a customer engineer on the Google CBRS team. My goal is to help our customers understand how our SAS works, troubleshoot any technical issues, and more broadly provide context and guidance for using CBRS. Today's session will be about 30 to 50 minutes as usual. I'll spend 10 to 20 minutes talking about some of the new highly requested features that we launched yesterday. And after I've completed the presentation, I'll open up the floor to questions. You'll notice that there is a chat window to the right of the video. Please feel free to ask any questions as I give the presentation. Just keep in mind that questions are viewable by everyone who's watching. Your questions don't have to be about the presentation, or CBRS is fair game. Don't worry about interrupting me while talking either. I want to make sure that all of your questions are being recorded so that I can answer them when I finish. I'll do my best to get to all the questions before the time is up. If I don't get to your question, or if any other questions come to mind after office hours have finished, know that you can always refer to our help center at support.google.com/SAS or reach out to us for support at sas-support@google.com. And I'm going to paste those links into the chat now so that you have them. All right, let's talk about what's new. One of our biggest feature requests has been for importing CBSDs in bulk via the SAS portal. Right now, if your device manufacturer supports two-step registration, you no longer have to go into the SAS portal, create a new device, enter all of the parameters for one device, click Save, create another device, enter the parameters for the second device, click Save, create a third device, etc. So now what you can do is there is a new import button, which you can see on the screen next to the Create New button. Once you click the import button, a dialog window will pop up, and you can see the dialog window also on this slide. There's a template, a CSV template, which you download from the dialog, fill out the template, and once you've filled it out, select the file using the Select File button in the dialog. The CSV template has a number of different fields on it. Every field corresponds to one of the fields in the SAS portal user interface, so you shouldn't have any surprises in terms of what those fields are. We have added a new field called display name. So customers have asked if they can name devices separately from the device's call sign as a way to quickly identify that device without having to memorize the serial number or the FCC ID, for example. So that display name is now visible in the template. There are a number of required fields in the template. Required fields have an asterisk next to them, so make sure that you fill in all of the fields with asterisks. We do need to update the template. There are one or two fields that are incorrect, so just for your awareness, the display name is not required, and the device category is required. And those are the only two fields in the template that currently need to be fixed, and we'll have that done by the beginning of next week. So this is a pretty straightforward feature, but a very important one for users who want to very quickly add a large number of deployments to the SAS portal. Remember that this configuration import only works for devices that support multi-step registration. If your devices support single-step registration only, then any changes to your device parameters have to be made within your device vendor's interface or the domain proxy if you're using one. The only other important thing to note with CSV import is that we only support import. We don't support bulk edit. So once your devices are imported, you cannot use bulk import to edit the existing configurations. Any edits must still be done in the SAS portal. So if you would like to re-import after you have done one, let's say that you import a bunch of devices and then you need to make some changes, you'll have to delete those devices from the SAS portal before you'll be able to import them with bulk import again. Okay, next. This is the second feature that we've released, and it is unquestionably a super, super important feature for all of our users. So many of you know that we offer a network planner as part of our CBRS suite. The network planner allows you to assess the propagation of signal based on Google's high fidelity geodata. And we have now repurposed a part of that tool to account for all of the different aspects of CBRS, all of the different incumbent behaviors in CBRS, so that you can very quickly and visually explore CBRS spectrum availability throughout the US. To access the Heatmap tool, you're going to click your account icon in the upper right-hand corner of the SAS portal, and you'll now see a new menu option near the top called View CBRS Heatmaps. When you click that button, it's going to open up the network planner in a new tab. The left-hand side of the screen has what we call a project panel. If you click the Overlays button in the project panel, and then you select the CBRS Overlays menu, and underneath it, Spectrum Availability Cat B, then you'll see a heat map overlaid over the continental United States. There's a key in the upper right-hand corner of the map that shows what each of the colors means. So we will change the shade of the heat map based on the number of channels available for full power transmission in that specific area. So I want to dive into kind of a close-up of the heat map. I know the last slide is a very high-level overview of the whole United States, but what I imagine most vendors care about is the ability to really zoom into a specific area and know in as granular a way as possible whether a CBSD will receive the required spectrum before they actually set up the radio, right? Before you take the time and the money to go out and set up a CBSD. So when you look at this map, you'll notice that this is a area on the Pacific coast between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and there are a lot of different colors here. So Santa Maria is totally covered in a shade of blue. The blue indicates that this area does not have any spectrum availability pending the deployment of an ESC in this area. So as we've discussed in previous SAS office hours, our ESC network is still being deployed. So the spectrum in this area is not protected by an ESC yet, and so we have to assume that incumbent users are always present. Once we install an ESC, that blue color will change to be one of the green colors. So when you see that blue color over Santa Maria, you can be sure that there will be spectrum available, at least some spectrum available once the ESC is deployed. If you notice southwest of Santa Maria, there is a darker blue color. Those areas are unavailable. In those areas, what unavailable means is that you will not get a full-powered grant on any of the CBRS channels. It doesn't mean that that you can't get any grant. It just means that you cannot get a full-powered grant in that area, in those specific areas, even after the ESC is deployed. You kind of notice that there's a kind of an arc that goes up from the bottom left of this view to the top right. That arc shows the boundary of an FSS plus GWBL protection zone. And you'll notice that the green section southeast of that arc corresponds to the 6 to 10 channel color in the map key. So those green areas southeast of the arc, you will receive 6 to 10 channels max at full power, and that's because in an FSS exclusion zone, the upper 50 are not available, right? So the map is telling you in this area, you will only be able to access 6 to 10 channels. If you go to the northwest of that arc, you'll see that there's a darker green color, and that darker green indicates that you will receive the full 11 to 15 channels, that you will receive 11 to 15 channels at full power. It doesn't mean you'll receive 15 channels at full power. It could be that you only receive 12 channels at full power, and 3 of them are affected by a nearby GWPZ. But this gives you a much better ability to anticipate how much spectrum will be available in each very specific area in the US. I believe that we have this down to a 1 square kilometer box. Now, let's talk a little bit more about some of the assumptions behind these heat maps. I know I've mentioned them already, but just to go through them one by one. So when we're calculating the color to put on the heat map, when we put a color in each square, we're assuming that when you deploy a device in that location, it is going to be the only device in the entire United States that's deployed. And this actually matters a lot for areas that are impacted by out-of-band DPAs, for example, or even near GWPZs. Aggregate interference is an important consideration for whether the SAS can grant spectrum. So these heat maps are an approximation, and they assume that they're an approximation of available spectrum, and they assume that your CBSD that you're deploying is the only one there. We're also assuming that the CBSD is deployed outdoors. So if you're deploying a CBSD indoors, you may have more spectrum available than a CBSD deployed outdoors because you have that extra interference protection from the building. We're assuming an omnidirectional zero gain antenna. So if your antenna gain is higher, or if your radio is pointed in a specific direction, your results may vary relative to the available spectrum based on the heat maps. So a directional antenna pointing away from the ocean near the coast might have more spectrum availability than an omnidirectional antenna in the same location. Lastly, we're assuming that every antenna is 25 meters above ground level at each location. So if your device is lower or your device is higher, again, your spectrum availability in practice may vary. All right, we talked about this point already, but just to re-emphasize that the colors on the heat map correspond to the number of full power, that's 47 dBm per 10 megahertz for a category B CBSD, the number of full power 10 megahertz channels that are available for use by a CBSD within 48 hours of deployment. The within 48 hours of deployment piece is a crucial piece to understand. If you deploy a device near a GWPZ, the SAS may have to suspend your grant until CPAS can determine that your device's transmission is not going to cause excessive interference to the protected entity. Similarly, if your device is on a move list because your device is near the coast, then you may not have full spectrum availability based on the heat map in the first 24 hours, or at least until the first CPAS. But after the first CPAS, you should see the same spectrum availability as the heat map indicates. Next assumption, all always-on incumbent activities incorporated. So this includes places like Table Mountain, the National Radio Quiet Zone, U.S. borders, GWPZs, FSS, GWBL, ESCs have to be protected from interference. We account for that as well. Out-of-band DPAs, which are always on and impact pretty much the entire CBRS spectrum, those DPAs are accounted for. So any always-on incumbent activity is incorporated into the channel count in the heat map. This is a huge benefit. I think one of the most challenging things from a CBRS standpoint is understanding how all of the incumbents interact. And I think that this is the user interface for the heat maps makes it just very simple to look at a specific location and have confidence that all of the incumbent activity is accounted for in that location. All of the always-on incumbent activity. Temporary incumbent activity is not displayed in the heat maps and not accounted for. So if you have a device that's deployed in a DPA neighborhood and that DPA is activated, some of the spectrum that the heat map indicates is available may not be available temporarily. Right, if an incumbent user comes into the area. So that's something to keep in mind, is that this is not a live heat map this is not a live visualization of spectrum. It is an approximation based on all of the data that we have about always-on incumbents and protected entities. If you want to learn more about the specific considerations that affect the heat map key, we have a new article in our Help Center which describes how heat maps work, how to access them, and how to interpret them. Okay, so with that, we're going to open up the floor to questions. I see that we have one already. And yeah, if for anyone else who wants to ask questions either about these new features that we're announcing today or wants to ask questions about other CBRS issues, then please feel free to put them in. All right, so a question from Vincent. Is an ESC deployment utilized by all SAS or specific to Google SAS? This is a great question. So ESC networks, different SASs use different ESC networks. Some SASs share ESC networks, and some SASs have their own proprietary ESC networks. So an ESC deployment is not utilized by all SASs to determine whether or not a given DPA is active. However, all SASs know the specific locations of every ESC across all ESC networks, and we need to know where every ESC is located in order to protect those ESCs from interference. ESCs need to be able to detect Navy radar, so the Navy radar, any CBSD near an ESC could potentially trigger that ESC and cause a false DPA activation. So the SAS will make sure that any devices deployed near an ESC do not cause interference for the ESC, any ESC in any ESC network. And Vincent, if you have more questions about that, feel free to follow up. While I'm waiting for more questions or follow-ups, two more things to keep in mind. I mentioned that the heat maps are not real time. We are planning to make them real time, and that support is coming soon, hopefully in Q2. And you will be able to identify specific channels and how much power each channel is allowed to use for a particular CBSD configuration. That's another feature on our roadmap. So even though right now the heat map shows this approximated channel availability metric, over time we're definitely working toward getting that, making that heat map as specific to your devices and as real time as we can possibly make it. I see that we have a number of viewers. Hi, Vincent. So Vincent's asking, would any of the recent changes impact the way channels are granted, or is it still based on the request, then SAS availability? So these features that we're releasing do not at all impact the way that channels are granted. This is just a visualization of our approximation of which channels, how many channels would be available to receive a grant, an authorized grant, after 48 hours. But the SAS is using exactly the same logic as it has always been using to All right, everybody, I think we are going to call it a day. Thank you for coming to Google SAS office hours. It's great. Seems like we have a pretty consistent turnout of people, so exciting to know that this time is helpful. If you have any questions or feedback for us, topics that you'd like to see us cover, changing the format of office hours, anything at all that would be helpful to you for deploying your CBSDs and setting up successful CBRS networks, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here for you in your deployments and your businesses, and we want to help. So come with any of your feedback, questions, support queries, and so on. Hope everybody